happens every time. I'm late, the bus is early. When I'm early, it's late. You suppose it knows what it's doing to me?
Well, the bus is a mechanical device. It has no soul.
What do you know about souls?
I know that a soul is the intangible yet very present essence of an individual that seeks its reason for existence and ultimately its creator.
Ah, smart girl. What are you, some kind of student?
No, I'm in real estate.
Welcome back to Boys Bible Study. We are the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego of podcasting. I am your co-host, Ash. As always, I'm here with...
Scott.
And Yoel. That was my Jewish name.
Oh, that's cute. I like that. You should go with that.
Yeah. Shalom.
Yeah, shalom. And a very, very big shalom to our special guest today, Alec Robbins. Hey, Alec, welcome back to the pod.
Shalom. My Hebrew name is Aaron Shmuel.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't remember the second part of mine.
Yeah, I am floored that it's still in my brain because it's honestly not come up in years.
What's the significance of the two parts of the Jewish name? Like,
I think it's your Hebrew first name and your Hebrew last name.
Oh, okay, yeah. Cool.
It's the name of your first Hebrew pet and the first Hebrew street you grew up on.
Yeah, it's the Hebrew hospital you were Hebrew born in.
I feel like the dumbass angel from Touched by an Angel. Before we get into the Touched by an Angel episode that we forced our friend Alec to watch with us, listeners, you may or may not know that Alec Robbins is the artist behind the very popular webcomic Mr. Boop. How's that going? As of the time of recording, you have just embarked on the 4th book of Mr. Boop. How are you feeling? Anything you can tell our listeners?
I can tell my listeners and your listeners and all of our listeners that this is the final arc of Mr. Boop, the final chapter.
No.
Yes.
I already, it's not breaking news. I posted that, but if you are not familiar with Mr. Boop, it is a comic about how I'm married to Betty Boop. And then I revealed just last week or so that I made it all up. I was never actually married to Betty Boop. And now the comic is just about my daily life. It's just a real life diary comic now. So I'm still doing it, but I'm not legally in character. I'm not legally allowed to keep doing a comic about Betty Boop. So
sure.
Now it's just about my life.
Well, it really takes a big person to, come out and admit the truth. And the many Mr. Boop readers seem to have, come to your side and supported this.
I've been 63% forgiven, according to a Twitter poll.
If people have not read Mr. Boop yet, how can they see the strip?
That's a great question, Ash. Thank you for covering all the bases here. You can follow me on Twitter at Alec Robbins. That's the place I'm most active, but I also post them all on Instagram at Alec S. Robbins. And lastly, you can just go to mrboop.net, but I don't update it that often. I always forget. I got to update it manually because I made the site look like an old GeoCities site.
Sure. I mean, come on. We all get so many fucking sites. But
I got so many sites. I'm so happy to be here. I love this podcast. And last time I was here, it was the most dull movie I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Worst one we've watched.
Yes.
What was it called?
Heaven Quest.
Heaven Quest, A Pilgrim's Progress. We, as hosts of the show, regard as the worst film we've watched so far in our run. So we are very pleased to have Alec back to watch an hour of television that had me really doubled over at times. Like some of the hardest I've laughed is something we've watched. I personally was like thrilled and chilled. It left us a lot to think about and I think a lot to talk about. So let me take this opportunity to formally introduce our material for this episode. We watched from the long-running CBS drama Touched by an Angel, we watched season 8, episode 5, Chutzpah. Am I saying that right?
Chutzpah.
Chutzpah. You gotta get
Chutzpah.
the
Put some English on the front there, yeah.
yeah.
Julian and Alec, what does chutzpah mean?
It's like gall or
Yeah,
like
look at the chutzpah on that. It's like look at the balls
Yeah.
on that person. It kind of works like
the matzo balls on that person.
Look at the matzo balls on that person. Ooh.
Yeah, like audacity.
Yes.
And it can be used like in a good way or a bad way.
Okay. You know,
I think usually it's a good way.
I was gonna say I guess it could. It's the same way
I don't
as
think
like,
I've ever heard it in a bad way, except.
Well, I
in this
mean, you could
episode.
say like, look at the balls on this guy in a bad way.
Yeah.
so you're saying shalom can mean hello, goodbye, and peace, and chutzpah can mean
Yes.
a good or bad?
It's just
What's going on?
Like
The
well,
words
it's-
don't matter. They don't matter.
I mean, every Yiddish word is like has the literal meaning and then the ironic meaning.
Sure.
Which is, I feel like every usage of l'chaim in my life has been meant to be like an ironic toast.
Sure.
The way that like Yiddish does end up getting used though is like, because I didn't grow up in a very Jewish family. We were Reform Judaism. So like we went to synagogue on the big holidays, and my parents honestly didn't know anything about the religion. So my brother and I went to Hebrew school and like would lead our own family's prayers on like Passover, Pesach as it's called, or Hanukkah. So like, yeah, the Yiddish that would come out was like what my mom heard from her mom. Just you would say, yeah, you'd say chutzpah, you'd say schmutz, you'd say, is that, maybe schmutz isn't Yiddish, but it feels like it is. But those all to me, like, they're hanger-ons. They're just incorporated into English now.
Yeah. Schmutz is Yiddish.
Okay, cool.
You got
I've
it.
never heard anybody speak Yiddish. I don't.
Nosh.
Nosh is Yiddish, yep. Oh yeah, we said nosh all the time.
As a Gentile myself, I learned most of my Yiddish words from reading Mad Magazine when I was young. That was a big comedic info. That was where I learned how to say nosh.
Mad Magazine is sort of the modern Torah.
Yeah.
You know, they make every one by hand. They don't actually print it.
Right.
Mad
Every
Magazine,
copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sofer of Mad Magazine.
Well, that segues into our episode.
It's true. It does. In Chutzpah, season 8, episode 5 of Touched by an Angel, we meet a man who is a sofer and actually handwrites the Torah, as I learned. And we get introduced to him in a pretty convoluted way. And this requires a bit of background on the show Touched by an Angel. If you've never seen it, I haven't watched much of it. It was constantly on the TV in the late 90s when I was growing up. So I passively absorbed some, but we were more of a Seventh Heaven household.
Yeah. Same.
But there was something about it that really stuck in my brain. It was very, and I mean, as we sort of discovered from watching this episode, there's this sort of like surreal, like melodrama to it that's like very compelling, like kind of the way that like soap operas are filmed really weird. Like there's just something that looks very strange about them.
The acting style is almost like softcore porn.
Yes, had a very softcore vibe to it.
Yeah.
So I'll just give very brief background on Touched by an Angel. It was on CBS from 1994 until 2003, so almost a decade-long run. It went 9 seasons, 211 episodes. We tuned in on our episode toward the end, like I said, season 8. It essentially centers around a council of angels who are on Earth doing the Lord's work, helping mortals through their various problems and existential crises. The 4 main characters, I'll just briefly introduce. The head angel, who we didn't see a ton of in this episode, but she's there, is Tess, played by Della Reese. We also have Monica, who figured strongly into this episode. She's a beautiful, I should say, what's her name? Roma Downey. Roma Downey is the actress who plays Monica, and she is actually Irish, by the way. We were trying to place her accent.
Very
during the film.
light Irish accent.
Yes, she has a
Like,
lovely.
when she finally starts monologuing, you can tell.
And the blarney comes out. But yeah, she's great. She has an amazing concerned face that she deploys remarkably. We also have a man named Andrew, a character named Andrew, who is the angel of death. And
Which you pointed out, it does not come into play at all, and I'm so curious what that means in this context. But well, I have plenty of questions about this show.
It's very much like those serialized dramas that would have like 23 episode seasons, which is not too long ago for television.
right.
Yeah, like Lost was the last of that, I think.
Yeah, where like these characters would have these dynamics with each other that almost rarely came into play outside of like, this one's the stubborn one and this one's the goofy
Right.
one. Until they would have like one episode every like 9 episodes where like I'm sure they had like, here's the one where it's all about how he's the angel of death.
Right.
And we won't mention it again for like another 3 seasons.
The actor who plays Andrew, the Angel of Death, is John Dye. And our last main character is Gloria, portrayed by Valerie Bertinelli. A newer addition to the cast. She appeared in season 7. She is, if we're not mistaken, an angel who was like created as an adult by God.
Yeah.
And she's like sort of the trainee under. In the original seasons, Monica was an apprentice to Tess. But then I guess after a couple seasons of that, you know, she
She's a pro now. We
Right.
need a new amateur
exactly
angel.
exactly.
And we kind of were able to pick up on that she was new to this because they keep reminding her, but she's also like incredibly dense. I don't want to be so mean as to call her stupid.
I mean,
Well, she seemed really ignorant, remarkably ignorant.
Was this the first season she's in?
she appeared in season 7.
Okay, so she's been around for like a year.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't figure out is like how is she still not she doesn't know what the Holocaust is. She's an angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She also keeps accidentally revealing that she's an angel, and they're like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And like if she's been an angel for like a year, you'd think they would have caught her doing that at least once by now.
So in that case, now that we know a bit about our characters and our premise, let's get into the episode Chutzpah.
Well, we have our angel sitting at the bus stop. She meets a gentleman who has a big beard and a yarmulke on. And she says, "Oh, I know about you. I know about Jewish people."
Yeah.
And then she immediately lists off some notes she took that she got from a skinhead. And he's pretty offended. And that's the first sign that she doesn't know anything.
Jewish. I know all about that.
Really?
Yes. It's here. Oh, this is such a coincidence. Of course, Tess would say there are no coincidences. I was just speaking to some young men. Right here. Jews are pigs. They are only interested in money, and they try to manipulate society by perpetuating the myth of the Holocaust. But the truth is, the Holocaust never happened.
Yeah, so she has this encounter with the first Jewish man she's ever met. She still manages to make a real estate connection with him, because I guess this show is kind of like Quantum Leap, where
Like her cover, she had to like come up with a cover really fast, and they were sitting on a bench that had a real estate ad.
Oh yeah.
Because she was about to say, "Oh, I'm an angel," but then she like does that like look around the room thing, like, "Oh, actually, I'm a real estate agent." She's so new. Like when she has that moment, and he's like, "Oh, I need a real estate agent. Do you have a card?" And she's like, "No, I don't." But then the other angel pops up, and is like, look in your pocket." And she's so surprised that it's there.
I love that.
yeah.
Learning about the lore and the powers of these characters was so interesting to me, because they can teleport kind of. I've never seen the show before, so I don't know like what the normal formula is. I don't know like if they can magically change people's minds or like.
And every episode, are they just winging it? Pun intended. Are they just get into these situations and then they're like, "Oh yeah, I can't tell you who I am." Is that a thing in every episode? I wish we knew. if they're always doing the thing of looking around the room trying to figure out who
They go from town to town to like help people with their problems, but it's like it really is just like, what in the world is? I mean, it says a lot about where we are right now that this is what angels have been doing for the past
Yeah,
20
like
years
the
trying
two
to help us.
the first problem in this episode is like she's just trying to help this Jewish man, Sam, sell his house,
his
I guess.
house,
Like
yeah.
it's so low stakes and he didn't even seem like he needed it that badly. He just kind of mentioned it like I kind of need a real estate agent. Angel happened to be there.
Yeah, they just wanted a smaller place because it's easier to clean, not because they're like, we lost our jobs, and there's no kind of pressure at all. Just like
Right,
a
like they show
casual
a
decision.
pipe is dripping and it's like you just get a plumber for that. You don't need to sell your home.
Just talking about the like various conflicting like powers and abilities of the angels that are very unclear and quite obviously just used by the writers. Like anytime the writers needed a conflict, they could just decide like the angels can't do that. But they can do this. But I loved in the beginning of the episode where Monica is just standing outside of the Grand Canyon yelling, "Hello, hello." Like, what is she doing?
Hello! Hello! Hello!
Who do you think you're talking to? And what are you doing here?
I like to come here when I need to think.
Well, you better think about getting your little angel patootie back to business. You left Gloria alone.
Just for a moment.
It only takes a moment.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like where the angels meet.
That's where the angels go to think. They don't go back to heaven.
Right.
Multiple points in this episode, they teleport to the Grand Canyon for some me time.
Right.
To reflect.
Kicked ass. So essentially, yes. So we meet Gloria meets Sam Silverstein. She immediately offends him by telling him that the Holocaust isn't real. And then she introduces
The one thing you weren't supposed to say to the first Jewish person you met.
and then she still manages to get a connect as a real estate agent, completely just like arbitrarily. And we soon find out that the actual reason that this seemingly chance encounter was necessary for the angels to come in contact with the Silversteins isn't because of selling a house. It's actually to try to repair the relationship between Sam and his wife Ava Silverstein and their daughter Rachel.
Rachel's a cartoonist, which is, I think, combined with the idea that this is an episode about Jewish people, which is why I've been brought onto this episode.
Exactly.
Hey, you got it.
I've solved the puzzle.
So what did you think, Alec? Because I again, we'll keep going over the plot of this, but one of my favorite just general things about this episode was like the power given to the role of the cartoonist and like the cartoonist function in like the paper and in society. I wondered what you thought of the character of Rachel Silver and her supposed cultural power as a local political cartoonist.
Well, like it's so unclear and so poorly researched. I think like she's a cartoonist who works at the newspaper building. She works in the office, so she's got like her station there, which isn't how that works. They just syndicate national cartoonists from all over, then the newspaper like snatches up like enough to fill their page. They don't like have an in-house cartoonist generally. And also, one of the other angels was working at this newspaper office, just like also coincidentally.
That was also very confusing.
Yeah, I'm assuming that was set up earlier. Like maybe she's just working. Maybe not though.
They hired her to write editorials.
She introduced her. Yeah, she was
new in this episode. So just very, very convenient. All the angels are placed exactly where they need to be,
right?
Which you would expect from angels. But no, also like Julian pointed out, or maybe it was Ash pointed out that like this cartoonist has like watercolor palettes set up by her station, but she draws black and white ink cartoons.
That's so cool.
And she gets like so in the story, to summarize very quickly, she is annoyed by her father. She has a bad relationship with her dad, and when he comes and nags her, she writes these things down and turns them into mean cartoons about her dad, which she then turns into mean cartoons about Jewish people in general, and she doesn't see what's wrong with that. And she becomes like locally famous for it. Like within days, there's like a billboard on a bus with the name of her comic on it.
That's so cool.
Which is so absurd. Yeah. The idea that like A, that could be done in time, and B, that it even would get popular that quickly. Like
Je suis Chutzpah.
we need a Mr. Boop billboard up in Los Angeles that you didn't even put there yourself, or like no one hired.
Oh
It just
my
like
God.
due to the nature of the strip's popularity, they're just like sprouted a billboard. I love that.
I didn't do it. It's just, although I'm gonna look into how much a billboard costs now.
Oh, absolutely. Come on.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
but also just like I thought it was really funny, and actually just like a big theme in this episode in general, which I want to start talking about, is like the supposed power that art has in the world. Because like as this episode goes on, we find that Rachel Silver's cartoons are having like a big real life impact on her town, the local Jewish community, her father's life. What do you think, Alec? Like after seeing this episode, have you reevaluated the responsibility you have as a cartoonist?
I have a very relevant story from when I
Please.
used to do stand up. It is almost exactly as it happens in this story.
Whoa.
Which is I used to do like your typical edgy open mic comedy, and I would do some racier jokes that in my head were ironic. I had a joke about spousal abuse that I thought was very clearly about how that was bad. And I couldn't fathom that anyone would listen to me tell that joke and not understand that I was against that.
Right.
However, I would tell it sometimes, and people would come up to me after these like open mics. It's in Michigan. It's like at these bars in Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo, and it's usually just drunks who weren't even there to see a comedy show. They just like, hey, it's here, I'll watch. People would come up to me afterwards and sometimes say things that implied they agreed that it like they didn't get the joke, that they thought, oh yeah, what I said about spousal abuse was right, something like that. So that was like a big wake up call for me, in the sense that, okay, well, ironic humor, like, or edgy humor, whatever it is, there is a responsibility there. At least that's what I took away from it.
Sure.
I need to be more careful about what I'm saying and what I'm normalizing. And I mean, as heavy-handed and deeply stupid as this episode was, with the way it handles everything, the storyline about her like realizing she's making anti-Semitic comics and enabling hate, that's fair. That's very fair. Like, that's not just fair. It's what I went through that. So I get it. Like,
Now you make the comic all about how much you love your wife.
yeah, it's just a force for
There you
me.
go.
Complete 180.
Yeah.
It's
Stop.
beautiful.
It's all an uplifting story. My arc is very good.
Well, no, it's funny. Yeah, the thing with doing humor like that is or like to the point of your story is that, yeah, I mean, it's so easy to like assume. I don't know. I do that all the time. I assume, I'm like, I mean, you know, people
I'm
aren't.
not saying you shouldn't do it.
Right.
I'm just saying you shouldn't be shocked if you do it and somebody doesn't get it.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, you want to think like, oh yeah, like everyone gets this. Like everyone knows that. Like I would never think something like that. And then someone comes up and is like, oh yeah, beating your spouse rocks. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Great joke, kid.
Yeah, no, it's really important to communicate clearly, I think, now more than ever. And I think what everybody's saying is true, in that like you can be sarcastic and assume people are on the same page, and other people can assume they're on the same page with you, and then you get to certain points and realize that you're not, or that you haven't been joking the same way.
right. Then you get a phone call from skinheads that say, "We're gonna kill your dad. Thanks for making comics about how
Right.
greedy
Something
he
at work.
is." Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
we're doing
right.
this for you. They say that. That's insane. Like,
Yes. So yeah, as you can see us hinting toward, Rachel's sort of off-color political message does have some very scary ramifications down the line. But just to back up a little bit, some more info about her father, who is often the source material for her comics. We mentioned it briefly, but let's fully explicate it. He is a sofer. Am I pronouncing that right? I believe so.
I actually didn't
think
know
so.
I didn't know the word. I'm
did
sure I've
not
heard
know
it
that
before.
word.
Neither did I. Yeah.
I knew the job. The task is, it's somebody who, every Torah is handwritten. And so a sofer is somebody who goes very carefully through and recreates the Torah, each individual Torah.
I'm sorry. So not like a couch?
Right. I love that part.
What do you do?
I'm a sofer.
You're a couch?
Oh my God. I just realized, Scott, we just had an episode where we did our third Christian time travel movie, and we talked about just how tedious like time travel movies are. This is like that with that angel Gloria. Like, she's so fucking dumb that every time she like meets someone, she's like, a sofa? Oh wow, you're a couch? Like, shut the fuck up.
I think it's so convenient for writers to lean on a dumb character like that and make them even dumber because they think the audience is as stupid as she is.
Right.
It's so they play her so dumb, but then she's like, "Oh yeah, you said you knew Hebrew, so I learned it last night." And she's like fluent in Hebrew.
Well, that's why I was saying she's ignorant. She just doesn't know much. She can learn really fast.
Right. She's just a blank slate. But we were confused because we didn't know how long she'd been around.
Right.
That's what was like. Because if she can learn Hebrew in a day, which she does, it's weird that she hasn't learned. She has to be reminded multiple times not to tell people she's an angel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I've got to say, unironic laugh when they did the joke where she was like, "Oh, I just learned Hebrew in a day." Like, I thought that was actually pretty funny. So the rest of most of it was just like me laughing at the just complete inscrutability or whatever that word is of this entire thing. But that part got a laugh.
Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, thou shalt pursue.
You speak Hebrew?
When you told me about the Torah, I went and I learned.
You learned Hebrew? Yesterday?
Yes.
She is a smart girl.
Quick mind.
Can we talk about the flashback?
Please. Let's go there now.
Yeah, there's like to illustrate how broken the relationship is between Rachel and her father. They do this flashback to her like coming up to him while he's working on a Torah, and she brings in her like her dog shit handmade Torah that she made. She drew herself, and she hands it to her dad. It's this very sweet moment where she's trying to like show him that she can be like him. She wants to do what he does. And he like Neil deGrasse Tyson's her by going like, actually, this isn't how a Torah should look. You're a child. You don't know how to do this. And what you've handed me is dog shit trash.
I'm almost finished with the third book. I've adjusted the crowns as you suggested. I think you'll be pleased.
Daddy.
Don't interrupt, Rachel. I'm busy now.
But I have a surprise for you now.
What is it?
It's a Torah. A Rachel Silverstein Torah. I made it all by myself.
But it's really not a Torah.
Yes, it is. I copied it exactly like yours.
Rachel, it takes a long time to learn to do it perfectly, honey. And it must be perfect because it's the Word of God that we're preserving here. And this is not perfect. There are pictures in here.
I know. I made them for you.
But there are no pictures in a Torah. Besides, you're a girl. And I don't believe girls are supposed to make Torahs here, darling.
It's so like over the top. And God, I'm sorry, like not to go out of sequence, but by the end of the episode, he learns his lesson. And when they explain to him that he was being shitty there's no moment, like it's just like him going, "Oh my God, I was," and then it's resolved.
They both had a lot of learning to do. They're both very, very dense people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, I feel like it was pretty accurate in terms of like people getting upset at something personal happening to you and taking it out on like a group of people. But it was still like no one at any point was just like, I mean, I think the dad even said to his friend, the rabbi, that like, I don't care if she makes fun of me, like, but like she can't be taking this out on the Jewish people as a whole.
I mean, he's right. Her comics were awful.
Yeah, but nobody at any point like said that to her. Like said, I guess the angel kind of did, but nobody was explaining.
He says that.
Like,
he says that to her.
Okay, then I should just pay attention.
No. Sorry. Yeah, no. Like, but it's at that protest. He does like
because I was
explain,
thinking more and more about that as I was talking. That multiple people do say that to her.
Other than her employer, who's
You
probably like,
just
keep
say
them coming.
like.
The idea
Like
that the
third-
newspaper also was fine with this is crazy to me.
Yeah, her second comic that she wrote was just like a Jewish guy being like, oh no, my store is on fire, and then him like seeing dollar signs or something.
Yeah, like this the cartoon. The first one we get like a good glimpse at is like this anti-Semitic joke about how the dad burned down the synagogue for insurance money.
Insane.
And then the way that they treat each other is like when he like reads that one, he comes in to visit her office. He usually drops off her lunch, but this time he brings like a bag with a tongue in it, which is some like weird petty state. I don't fully understand the message, but I do get
like
the gist of it.
Shit.
Yeah, it was really dark and weird.
Hi, Dad. Don't tell me you brought a brisket again.
No, I brought you tongue.
Oh, I hate tongue.
I know. I didn't bring it for you to eat. I brought it for the symbolism.
Oh, well, in that case, thanks.
I want you to think about the words you're spewing out into the world, not with your tongue, but with your pen. Your insults to me, I can live with, but this must stop. It must, because I can't live with you insulting our people and our faith.
Your faith, Dad. I don't believe what you believe.
This isn't about what you believe.
And then she makes like another comic that I didn't get the joke. Did you? Did
anyone? That was very strange.
It's like him eating a sub, but he says something. I don't even know what it was.
He's eating a giant sandwich, and she's saying the pen is mightier than the tongue or something.
Yeah,
it wasn't. It was not much better than the comic she made before the anti-Semitism, which was just a cartoon cat eating a computer mouse. And that was the whole joke.
I didn't see that. That's so fucking funny.
Yeah. That was the first one she said, where they were like, "You need to think of some new material."
Yeah, it was 4 panels, but it was just that action being told over 4 panels. It wasn't like a comic. Yeah. It was like a storyboard for a mouse or for a cat.
It was like those Garfields without Garfield. Where like nothing happens.
She's a bad cartoonist, I'll say it.
So, you know, one thing that one of you said, I think Alec, that like sort of struck me about this episode was this episode was so funny because every character was just like so just wrong about everything. And they were all like talking past each other, and like no one was really like, everyone was just sort of making their point into space, and like none of the points really like hit each other. Like at one point the mom Ava like tries to like talk to her daughter, and she's like, listen, I chose to be a stay-at-home mom so you could choose to be a cartoonist. It's just like, what
she starts talking about women's liberation.
Yeah.
It was like this weird feminist angle all of a sudden that hadn't factored in at all yet, and then didn't for the rest of the episode. It was just like this hodgepodge soup of hot button issues that the show wants to mention that don't actually interact in any meaningful way. It's just, well, I mean, part of the writing, and I assume this is just how the show is written, and by the time you're on season 8, it's got to be as bad as it is when we just saw it. Like, the characters that the angels are meeting have to be incredibly stupid because the angels have to be smarter. Right. So like, these problems need to be solved by the angels, so the humans can't solve them themselves.
Right, that's true.
So, like, you're watching these like daft, stubborn morons not solving anything until an angel says the most obvious thing, and then, oh, okay, this will resolve 20 years of me being awful to my daughter, and now everything's fine.
And actually, now that you mention that, when it's the least bit complicated, they're not useful at all. Like when they actually confront the skinheads, they're like, I give up. Get out of here.
They're like, they're like, what are you going to do? And the angels are like, well, we're not going to do anything. You're going to get arrested now.
Oh my God. Yeah. The fact that like one of the angels starts like going off on this rant about how like you're going to jail. And like they're on the side of the police.
You're going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the American justice system.
There's no like angelic reckoning, and angels have been around since before humans existed. So it's so funny that they're on board with the police.
Yeah, and well, the worst situation is when they talk about when they all go to the Holocaust Museum. And they're all like, such a tragedy. And the angel of death is like, yeah, it was like the worst time of my life. And like,
he says, and I quote, it wasn't just bad, it was horrible.
Yeah. And like, it was just very strange to hear the angel of death saying that. Any angel, really, who has the ability to like appear at any place at any time, would just like sit around and let the Holocaust happen.
Right. Presumably he has to deal with death, and that was probably a very busy time for him.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the angels, I wanted to see more supernatural shit from them. And the most you get is like they teleport to the Grand Canyon, or they reveal to somebody that they're an angel, and then someone shines a light on their head or something. And then it's like an orange light to prove that they're magical. They don't even get wings. They don't get to fly.
They have that cool car.
Okay, yeah. They can materialize business cards in pockets.
They drive around in the red car.
A version of the show where like a biblical angel with a million eyes shows up and just scares someone who's being anti-Semitic.
That would have been genuinely important.
Phases them out of existence.
Oh yeah, just showing their true form for one moment, and everybody just like aghast.
Their eyes start bleeding.
You
Yeah.
are going to be arrested.
I was also, here's something nice about this episode. For something that I assume is very Catholic centric, angels I know exist in the Torah, but I assumed this would be a more like Christian leaning show, especially because this is a Christian podcast. I figured you wouldn't have chosen it otherwise. Surprised to say, they really are very accepting of Judaism, and I guess that's because it is included in Christianity.
Sure.
Yeah. That's the one that like media like this is always tolerant of other religions. It still has that sort of like element of otherness still.
Well, yeah, because every character's like, what's a chutzpah? Like, it's also funny that everything these Jewish characters did was like the most Jewish thing you could do, is making the most of their Jewish screen time.
Yeah, it wasn't, they were not seen outside of the fact that they were Jewish.
Yeah,
which,
exactly.
Granted, was important to the storyline, but like they didn't have any lives outside of being Jewish. But yeah, very secular angels, if that's even possible. I mean, this is just like, this show is basically just like the pulse of American culture at the time. Right. Like, angels exist, and like Christianity is the correct religion, even though all the other ones are right. But like, this is the good one. This is the one we can all agree on. Is basically how the show feels.
Yeah.
When was Angels in the Outfield? Was that like around this time?
I loved that movie. I was obsessed with that movie. I don't know, it was 96, 98? I want to say 98.
94.
Like
94.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So yeah, I would
Okay.
say this was contemporary. It was just, angels were definitely in the media.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah, because Touched by an Angel began in 94.
Wow.
It was the Clinton years.
We needed angels more than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, to help you sell a house, help you be good at baseball, all the important stuff.
Michael also came out around this time.
Oh yeah.
John Travolta
yeah.
as the angel.
Yeah.
People were like all about angels and like kind of just like making them seem like fallible.
Right. Well, what are some other, before we bring it home, what are some of your other like favorite moments in this episode? Because there was actually quite a few like really funny moments for me. Anything else we should mention before we bring it home?
This is not my favorite moment, but I love that the angels can teleport. But when the father's in danger of being killed by neo-Nazis, the angel drives her friend to the location instead of just teleporting there to stop it.
That was so good.
Yeah, and also doesn't stop him from getting beaten within an inch of his life.
Yeah, his hands break.
Like, no angel actually does. Like, they let him smash. They let the neo-Nazis smash his hands and then like shrink his arms down to little. Like, was I alone in thinking that his arms looked really like fake?
He was keeping them.
scene?
He was keeping them closed in like a T-Rex after he hurt his hands. So
Yeah.
his arms weren't shrunken. He just was choosing to emphasize how broken his hands were by holding them up at all times, like Gandhi and Clone High or whatever.
I know what you mean though, Julian. It almost seemed like there could be someone standing right behind him with their arms sticking out instead.
Yeah.
God.
And maybe another angel.
Yeah, that's what angels are there for.
But I just can't believe, like, what the hell is the point of these angels?
Yeah.
Yeah. They barely
What are they
accomplished
doing
anything.
here?
Basically, all they did was reveal that they were angels and then explain the most obvious thing to this father and daughter.
People in this story found out that angels are real and spoke to them and saw them. And this guy whose parents escaped the Holocaust and then were killed by a drunk driver when they got to the United States. Didn't think to ask, like, what the fuck is God doing with all of his time? Like, why did you come now?
You gotta think they're 200 episodes in. At this point, they can't have that conversation every time. You got to think that happened early on.
But Julian, what do you want? God's helping him sell his house faster.
That's true.
Yeah, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth there. If you're getting your house sold, you don't ask about the Holocaust.
Yeah, he's like Job. All this stuff happens, and then he gets rewarded with a
relationship with his daughter.
Yeah, also, if I was in the congregation, I don't think I could forgive the daughter that easily, because she ends up being a big, like, helping write the new Torah because the skinheads destroyed the old one.
Think of what a rift in that temple there would be if that happened today. If somebody was writing offensive cartoon or creating offensive cartoons and then turned around and was the first woman at that synagogue to finish the Torah.
Yeah, it's big time nepotism.
Religion's all about forgiveness. I think they would find it in their hearts.
Right.
As a community.
Yeah.
You're right.
We've lost that. That's something that I think we as people are a lot more cynical about, is forgiveness. And this episode taught us a valuable lesson.
Let's explicitly bring the plot home. We've mentioned it, but let's just navigate like the final thrust of this episode, when I'll start by saying that, you know, Rachel's high on the hog after the viral success of her new cartoons. There's even a moment, which is probably my favorite in the episode, where she's looking at all her hate mail and like laughing and throwing it in the air. And she's like, they might hate it, but at least they're reading it. Ha 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 ha. I love it. Haters are fans too, girl.
That's how I feel about Mr. Boop.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard you laugh, Rachel.
Yes, well, I've never had anything to laugh about before, and now I have fans.
Yes, but they're not all fans.
You know what? Love it or hate it, they're reading it, and that's what counts.
Don't you care that you're offending people?
You know what? The publishers wanted edgy. It's not edgy if you don't make a few people squirm, right?
But one day at the office, because as you said, Alec, she's a 9-to-5 cartoonist working. she makes one strip a week, and she has to work 40 hours in an office in order to produce it. She gets a very mysterious phone call from a man's voice saying, like, we understand the message in your cartoons. Like, don't worry, we're gonna make it come true. We're gonna do something for you tonight.
Rachel Silver?
Hi, this is your biggest fan.
Oh, really?
My buddies and I just want to tell you thanks. Now we're going to do something for you. You won't have to worry about that crew of pig rabbis protesting anymore. We're taking care of it.
What? Hello? 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 Oh, my God. Oh, God, Dad.
I'm going to shoot Ronald Reagan, so you'll go out with me.
Rachel realizes that these people are going to target her father's synagogue, who she's just spent the last week painting anti-Semitic caricatures of him. And sure enough, the angels, as Julian pointed out, drive to the synagogue, and skinheads are beating up Sam Silverstein and destroying the Torah. It's pretty fucked up.
Well, they're just trashing the place, and then they go in there and beat them up. And while the angels are there, they don't do anything to stop them until the police show up.
Right. Yeah, they just stand there. And glow.
They say like, hey, you're doing something really wrong. But I mean, I brought this up a little bit when we were watching it, but like, where were the angels when these guys were like kids and going down this path of hatred and everything?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when that came up, because with our cartoonist, Rachel, like, and Sam, they bring up this point from her childhood that was a turning point in her relationship with her and her dad. Why didn't they just do the same thing for them on the spot? It makes no sense.
Right.
I mean, they could have done both.
Yeah, they're angels. They should be able to do a lot more than what they're doing.
But even within the realm of what they show that they can do, they're not doing it.
Well, are there just 4 angels? Are there other like groups of roving angels? I don't know the lore. I don't know enough about Touched by an Angel.
Right.
Because if these are the only 4, like, maybe it makes sense.
I mean, there must be some limits on what they can get involved in, because they've gotten themselves involved in like such a banal situation compared to what the real problem is.
The question we're asking is the paradox of religion in general, which is like, if there is a God, why doesn't he fix all the bad shit if there are like it's not the show's fault. The show is just cribbing from an existing issue.
Right.
You're right. This is more accurate, actually.
I have less faith in God now, having watched this.
Oh, no.
Having been visited by the angels, I now renounce God.
Oh, God. We're going to have to watch another Jehovah's Witness movie now.
One brief fact about the episode I wanted to mention. One of my other favorite parts is that the skinheads, in order to deface the synagogue, spray paint the word chutzpah on the wall, which I thought
the
was
name
like,
of the comic, which we should clarify was the name of her comic.
Right. I love the idea of like skinheads being like, oh, we'll show them, and like write a Yiddish word on like the wall of a synagogue. I don't know. It seemed a little like roundabout.
Presumably they were referencing the comic.
Right. They're very culturally literate. But the angels facilitate a father-daughter makeup in the church. It's revealed that
the synagogue.
Oh, right.
Synagogue,
of course, in the synagogue. And we find out that she's been carrying a lifelong resentment at the fact that she believes that her father wishes that she were a man, because she's not really allowed to like continue the tradition of being a sofer.
Another layer,
right,
for this already very convoluted.
Right. I guess the
story.
Feminism angle does come back around, huh?
Yeah. But it's
weak. It's weak.
Very weak and strange. And eventually, the last scene of the movie, we find that Sam has gone back on this tradition. He's opened his heart, and he's taken his daughter on as an apprentice to be a sofer, thus sort of like ridding her of the need to like put her drawing talent to evil means. And
that's how we lost one of the funniest anti-Semitic cartoonists of our day. Imagine if I quit Mr. Boop to write Taurus.
We'd have a new religious resurgence.
I would be very proud of you. Did this story come off as like very victim blaming to anybody else?
In what way? Expand on that.
Like essentially, like, well, I mean, they're basically just like, the angels were kind of like, you guys keep this up, something bad's gonna happen. Like, they didn't really put any of the blame for somebody reacting to the comic by coming in and destroying a synagogue and smashing a old man's hands.
Dead
like,
on. The skinheads are just sort of like, they're treated as nature.
It was kind of like, it's your fault for making the comics.
Right.
Yeah, they weren't skinheads until they read the comic.
Yeah. But I'm just like kind of blown away by the fact that the angels are just like, oh yeah, the skinheads, they're lost causes.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, they're going to have to go to jail. They're going to have to go to jail for many, many years. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, it's actually your fault, old man, because you were mean to your daughter when she was a kid. Like, so.
Right. The skinheads are a fact of life that will always be there. And it's just a force that we must react to. And it's incumbent on you actually to like make up with your daughter so you can like handle the violence inflicted upon you better.
I was bothered that none of these angels actually touched anyone either. That would have been a prime time to do it if the angel of death had like touched one of the skinheads and his hair immediately grew back and he realized the error of his ways.
Yeah. See, I was thinking like maybe the like raw power of the angels is too much to be like touched by as a human. So you like explode or something. But that's like, it's named after the ultimate death kill or something.
They use it once per season.
Yeah. On the big bad.
Oh, we forgot to mention this. It's not really part of the show, but the version of the show we were watching, the upload ended the climax of the show. Whoever uploaded it replaced the audio with a very loud royalty-free song that drowned out all the audio, so we couldn't hear what was happening.
It's like twice the
at
volume.
resolution.
And it went for 3 full minutes.
It was insane. We had to find another version of the episode to watch so we could actually see how it ended.
On Dailymotion, the best streaming service other than Tubi. Basically, Tubi and Dailymotion are the best streaming options available.
I'm going to go ahead and vouch for Crackle.
Oh, Crackle. I've had some bad Crackle experiences.
Ooh. If you want to watch some news radio with commercial breaks, go on to Crackle.
Me and Scott watched the Lindsay Lohan movie I Know Who Killed Me on Crackle, and it took so long because every 5 minutes they kept showing the same Bacon Whopper commercial 4 times in a row. It just...
See, that's why Crackle's good.
And specifically, we kept getting to this one point. Fellow previous guest of the pod, Nate Faustin, was also there with us. Yeah. And we kept getting to this one point almost at the end. It was real in the climax, similar to our experience today, where it cut to a guy's bloody hand and then would immediately cut to the Wendy's commercial with bacon bits falling in slow motion. And then it would just crap out after the commercial. We kept having to go back to that point, and it kept happening. Same thing again and again. It took us 45 minutes to finish the movie.
And trying to scrub to the end, every time we passed a commercial break, we had to watch the commercials until we got back to the end. It was so excruciating. It was hilarious.
Crackle's so good.
It took 3 hours to watch I Know Who Killed Me. It was so funny. But so, now that we've essentially summarized this episode, which there was quite a bit to unpack, and we did talk about some main themes, just some final general discussion questions to wrap it up. I sort of wanted to talk about claims of anti-Semitism in art. Alec, or anyone here, are you familiar with the cartoons of Ellie Valley? Because I'm a really big fan of his, and he is a Jewish cartoonist who sort of critiques Zionism, and his
I've heard of
his
guy,
work is fantastic, and is just interesting. I mean, this episode, the cartoonist Rachel is her art is just really bad, but it was an interesting parallel with Ellie Valley's work because it's really good, but it critiques Zionism, and a contingent, at least, of the Jewish community considers him to be an anti-Semitic cartoonist, even though he is actually a Jewish cartoonist.
I'm not too familiar. I know who this person is, but I'm on his side. I think there's a big problem with not being able to criticize Israel, and that does not make you anti-Semitic. There's a difference between the way a state is run. Versus that's the whole root of the problem. I shouldn't be. I'm not an authority on this, but
that's okay. None of us are. But
you said comedians have responsibility.
That's true. As a Jewish person, I am upset at any other Jewish person who is not criticizing Israel. You are either not thinking about it enough, or you are blinded by propaganda and your religion. Julian, did you ever go on Birthright or anything? I didn't go, but. And I've had to argue with a lot of people about that because I don't see it as anything but propaganda. And my whole argument, my whole argument is that even if I went with the idea that
if I went, here's how.
If I went, here's how I would have done it. But no, if I had gone on Birthright just for the free trip with the intention of ignoring everything they say, whatever it is. If I had done that and still came back and said, hey, the free trip was fun, and convinced even one other person to go, I'm now perpetuating the propaganda. I don't want it to happen at all. Right. Even that service existing, the fact that it's too good to pass up, that's all part of this really malicious machine to me. And again, I don't, I can separate it from Judaism. I'm also not that religious. I guess I'd call myself an atheist, even though Ricky Gervais ruined that for everybody. But
absolutely.
But yeah,
I will say you are 100% right about having gone on the trip personally, it is 100% a tool to recruit Americans to move to Israel, bolster the population, and serve as kind of a brain drain of rich American Jewish people to go and set roots in Israel so they can build more condos and pave over more Palestinian homes. It's extremely fun.
Yeah, it's so dark. I have friends who went on Birthright and then moved there. Literally a friend
that's not
moved there right after he went.
I mean, also having gone there, I don't know why you would want to move there.
Well, okay.
Out of all,
I'm not gonna
no offense to the people or anything, but I'm we were all in California. It's the same weather as California. I like America better.
Listen, that is not my point, but
I don't know. I went there and it was like, well, a coworker of mine, this older Jewish lady, told me that like she went to Israel and she had this moment where as soon as she touched down, she was so overwhelmed by like the returning to the promised land that she broke down crying and was like in love with it so much. And I was so scared that was going to happen to me that when the plane touched down, and then like stepped off the plane, got outside, and I was like, looks like fucking Southern California. And then I kind of just want to go back to California and go to like the redwoods or something. I don't know.
I have a question going back to the episode real quick. So there is a joke from Sam, the dad, where he's like antagonizing his daughter early on, the cartoonist, and he says, "Oh, did I earn another picture on your wailing wall?"
Oh my God.
Isn't that kind of like, if
like
she
that.
made a cartoon of that, wouldn't that fit right in with her like
the reason that sucks because
anti-Semitic?
it's just like someone writing a Jewish character in the most reductive way. Like he wouldn't have said that. Like even whether or not that's like offensive, it's, to me, the first problem is that the writers just like wanted to really drive home that this guy's Jewish. So even him saying this thing like, "Oh, you're going to do that again," has to be extra Jewish.
Yeah. But it just seemed like joking in that manner was similar to the manner in which she was joking. And then it was.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
This is not well written.
It would be like if like a Jewish character like honked his horn and was like, "I'm blowing a shofar over here," or just like some shit like that. You know?
Yeah.
Julian, you did the matzo balls thing earlier. Like, look at the matzo balls on that guy.
What did I say? Oh, yeah.
Well, I actually like to know, since we're all saying each other's jokes, I like when you, Alec, were like, "My head's spinning like a dreidel over here." It's like, that's just like how all Jewish people like communicate with each other.
Yeah,
It's
like
so
that's
funny.
what I'm saying. Like the idea of somebody you're trying to write a Jewish character. Like, oh my God, I remember I took like an improv class, and this was very insidious of the teacher to even put a student in a trap like this. But they were trying to make some grand statement about playing a reductive character, and they brought someone up and they were like, "Now I want you to play a gay character."
What?
And
yeah, that's a trap. It sounds like a trap.
yeah,
Anyway,
it's
go on.
such a trap. And then this poor guy, I mean, this was shitty of him, but he starts going like, "Oh, I need to buy some dildos." And then the teacher stops him and goes like, "Well, you see, you should have just played it like anybody else."
Oh, Christ.
So like, just a nightmare. Never take an improv class. That was so fucking psycho.
All right, fine, I won't.
Oy vey, I need to go buy some dildos.
You're Jewish and you're gay.
I'm playing it like anybody else.
That is just what you would say normally, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Well, I would say for our purposes, that was a pretty good summary of Touched by an Angel, Season 8, Episode 5, Chutzpah, with our very special guest, Alec Robbins. Before we get out of here, what is the official Boys Bible Study rating of Chutzpah?
I give Chutzpah, Season 8, Episode 5 of Touched by an Angel. I almost called it Charmed by an Angel. I give it 4 skin out of 5.
I give this episode, this wonderful, enlightening episode. I never knew about the Holocaust until this episode. I'm not going to lie.
It's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's wild. They don't teach that in school anymore.
I'm going to give this episode 4 out of 4 useless angels.
Have you noticed, like, when people are like, "Oh, yeah, they don't teach that in school anymore," it's like always people who haven't been in school in like 20 to 30 years.
Oh, more even.
Yeah.
It's like, bitch, they didn't even know the world was round when you were in school. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I'm going to give this one big ol' Anamon-themed bar mitzvah bash out of one of those.
Wow, you remember my bar mitzvah?
If you remember that. Yeah, that's a callback to your other episode.
Alec reminds the audience you maybe didn't hear your last episode.
My bar mitzvah was themed after the cartoons I drew as a kid. So they blew up big like cardboard cutouts of all my OCs, all my original characters. And it was called Alec's Cartoon Mania. And one of my childhood comics was Animon.
That is so cool.
Which was, it was, I probably have pictures of it somewhere because it was very cool. Everyone's bar mitzvah in my town was just competing over who could be more extravagant. And there was like a dumb social trap everyone fell into.
Keeping up with the Silversteins. I gotta come clean, Alec. I have thought about Animon, like that word and that concept has popped in my head like every 3 days since we recorded that first episode.
I was so floored you remembered it even. I can't believe.
I will never forget Animon. I don't know why.
It's the dumbest thing. It's such a 5-year, like when I was in 5, I was like 10 years old, just like, I like anime. Pokemon's an anime. I want to make my own comic. Animon. Perfect.
That is so
Digimon
cool.
too. It was like, oh God. Neopets were characters at one point in my comic.
You're infringing copyright at a very young age.
Yeah, right off the bat. We actually, so dark, but we would trade copyrights for our characters with other kids. So like if we had our own character and I wanted to use my friend's character in my comic, we would like trade a copyright. I'm like, where did we pick that up?
That is so cool.
It's so dark.
Oh, wow. I can see why you are the way you are now.
Well, I have got to give this episode Chutzpah 5 out of 5 books of the Torah.
Oh,
wow. That was the smartest of the rankings so far.
Girls allowed.
Can you name all 5 books?
Yeah, because I have the Wikipedia. I literally have the Torah Wikipedia open, so I didn't fuck that in the job.
Do you know that there's someone has to handwrite every Wikipedia entry of the Torah?
The Sofer. You meet a fucking like obsessive Wikipedia editor, and you're like, so you're the Sofer of Wikipedia? Amazing. I would say then, thus concludes the official Boys Bible Study review of Chutzpah. Alec, thank you so much for joining us once again on this podcast.
God,
it's so nice to have you.
I love you all. This is so much fun.
Oh, we love you too. And we're all big Mr. Boot fans here. Godspeed on closing out this ambitious saga. Just started book 4. Anything else you want to plug? What's your deal with books or anything? Do you have a schedule for that?
Oh, well, yeah, you can buy the Mr. Boop books if you'd like. They're available at mrboop.net or gumroad.com/Alec Robbins, I think is probably the direct store link. It is gumroad.com/Alec Robbins. And the first 2 volumes are collected in books. Maybe soon I'll have an announcement about the 3rd volume. I'm going to try to print them all.
Yeah, you said you're working on the physical edition of 3. That's very exciting while you are releasing 4 digitally. So everyone listening, if you haven't seen Mr. Boop yet, check out mrboop.net. On the Boys Bible Study side of things, thanks everyone who joined us for our patron live stream last week. It was so much fun. In general, if you don't know already, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Boys Bible Study. If you pledge at the $5 tier or higher, you get access to 2 or more bonus episodes that we release every month. At the $1 tier or higher, you can join our monthly live streams. We just did one, but we'd love to have you back for October, so please sign up. We want to thank our patron saint members of the Patreon, Nicole and Marissa, our patrons at the $20 tier. You can join their esteemed ranks by pledging $20 a month. We will shout you out. From all of us here at Boys Bible Study, myself, Ash, my co-hosts, Scott and Julian, and our guest today, Alec Robbins, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And also.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day